The incentive for this committee to get things done, as we mentioned, were these automatic cuts, $600 billion to the Pentagon, $600 billion in social programs exempting entitlements. There are some who in Congress who want to undo that deal now. The president said earlier in this week that he would veto any effort to do that. Where do you come down on these cuts? Should they happen automatically?
Well, first of all, the dollar amount absolutely has to happen. This is just the beginning of what we need to do to get spending under control. Let me put it this way. $1.2 trillion is a big number. It's a lot of money. But over 10 years, it's less than 3% of what the federal government is going to spend. So this should be, actually it should be easy to do. It's not politically, but it should be. It's incredibly important that we do it, but I do think that we need to change the configuration of those cuts. These cuts are too heavily weighted towards our defense budget, and the Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta, has said it would hollow out our nation's military. Can't do that, so I want to change the composition of these cuts.
Congressman Hinsarling said that the president showed a lack of leadership in this process. Do you believe this has been more of a political exercise than an exercise in leadership for the president?
I think the president chose not to be helpful here. In fact, what he did was made our job much more difficult. He put out a veto threat early on that I think caused the Democrats on the committee to dig in and insist on still more in taxes than they might have otherwise. He said in addition to the difficult enough challenge that we faced, he wanted us to come up with another way to pay for $500 billion of his latest stimulus spending plan. And then there was no involvement on the part of the president or any of his staff to find common ground, to encourage the kind of reforms. It was just, after making our job tougher, he just disappeared from the scene. That wasn't very constructive.
We're not in a very good place right now, Senator. The nation still $15 trillion in debt. The economy has been dead in the water now for 3 years. You call this yourself a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that has clearly been missed. How should the American people view this failure by all of their leaders in Washington?
Well, with great disappointment, as I do. You know, it's very frustrating. I've been in the Senate for almost 1 year now, and we're going into our 3rd year without a budget. I mean, it should be unacceptable for Harry Reid and his colleagues to simply choose to violate the law and not produce a budget. But the lack of a budget and an ordinary process that we ought to be going through is exactly why we find ourselves with the debt ceiling crisis and ongoing spending dysfunction and the need for a super committee. We shouldn't need this committee in the first place. I understand completely why people are very frustrated. I'm frustrated too.
So what's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, you know, one of the silver linings is, first of all, the spending cuts are going to happen anyway. I think they'll happen in a different fashion, but they'll happen. Secondly, throughout this process, we discovered lots and lots of opportunities to save a lot of money. Areas where the government shouldn't be spending money at all, and areas where it spends too much. So what I'm going to do with, I know a number of my colleagues, is to go and try to implement some of these reforms and spending cuts individually. If we couldn't do it as a big package, maybe we can do it in increments, and maybe we do it as part of the way we reconfigure these cuts that would otherwise hit defense too hard. So hopefully we'll make some progress on that front, and I do have some cautious optimism that some modest bills that will be good for economic growth. I've got a bill, a bipartisan bill, that will help small businesses to raise capital and to thereby grow and hire more workers. I think we've got a good chance of getting those passed. So I'm looking forward to getting back to the ordinary work of Congress and trying to make some progress.
All right. The American people certainly looking for progress.
Yeah.
Senator, thank you so much for your time today. Good to be with you. Our guest on Newsmakers has been Pennsylvania Senator